old is spring cleaning, and why do we do it? This is Rabbi Yossi Madvig, and you're listening to Jews Did It First. Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Please subscribe, leave a review. Also, please help and contribute to the podcast. Go to jewisoswego.org/Jews Did It First. Just click on the Make a Donation button in the upper right-hand corner. Helps out a lot. I want to make an addendum to the last episode. My 11-year-old son actually brought something to my attention that I just didn't even realize, didn't think about. So last time I mentioned that the Easter egg hunt, which seems to have started sometime in the early part or maybe the middle of the second millennium, was actually preceded by at least 1,000 years in which Jews, on Passover, on which Easter falls, searched for a piece of matzah during the Seder, known as the Afikomen. Well, I completely forgot about another Passover tradition where something else is hidden and found. It's known as Bedikas Chametz, the search for leaven. So before Passover, after all the leaven products have been removed and you've done a good cleaning, we take a candle and do a ritual search to ensure that all the leaven in the house is gone. But wait, there's more. Not only do we do a search, but we specifically hide pieces of bread around the house. The goal, of course, is to find all the pieces, and according to Kabbalah, we should hide 10 pieces. 10 is a good number for all sorts of Kabbalistic spiritual reasons. And this fulfills, after we find them, we then take them and burn them the following day, just before Passover starts. And this fulfills the command to destroy our leaven before Passover, as instructed, as described by Exodus 12. I think it's chapter 12. Anyway, so this, like I said, is mentioned in Kabbalah. It's also in the Mishnah, which the Mishnah in Tractate Pesachim, and explained in the Talmud. And this is a millennium older than the egg hunt. And it shows now that there's two ways in which Jews did it first. Now, on to the main topic of today, spring cleaning. So, spring cleaning, we're still in the beginning of spring here, despite the snowstorm I drove through the other day, which was absolutely insane. It's common knowledge that, many have a custom to do some major cleaning when spring arrives. But why? And where did this custom come from? So, I did a little bit of research, and according to Wikipedia, I had some very interesting things. In North America and Northern Europe, the custom is pretty practical due to the wet climates and stuff. During the 19th century in America, prior to the advent of our wonderful vacuum cleaner, which ours got totally destroyed because of all the Passover cleaning, we had to buy a new one. March is often the best time for dusting because it's kind of getting warm outside, so you can open windows and doors, but there's not really such an insect problem yet, so that's really good. And the high winds, I don't know about you, but in Oswego, we get some pretty nasty winds. They can carry the dust out of the house. So this time of year is also when, if you had coal furnaces, they wouldn't be running, so you could wash out all the soot from, the walls and the furniture left by the furnace. And for the same reason, modern rural households, not in the city, the rural ones, they would use the month of March for different cleaning projects, especially when using chemical products which generate fumes, because then you've got, like I said, the windows open and you don't have to worry about inhaling nasty fumes. But that's only a couple hundred years old. But it's so ubiquitous and it's so multicultural that you would expect this concept of spring cleaning to be quite a bit older. Indeed, traditionally the Catholic Church thoroughly cleans the church altar and everything associated with it on Maundy Thursday, which is the day before Good Friday in the spring. Spring cleaning actually continues in Greece and other Orthodox nations, Orthodox Christian, and is traditional to clean the house very thoroughly, either right before or during the first week of Great Lent, which is referred to as Clean Week. And this also corresponds with the Julian New Year, which is April 1st. So quite interesting. And in fact, that was when Easter was this year, right? And often falls around this time. Passover, Easter, very common because they're both around the equinox. It's one of the few holidays that is somewhat solar in Judaism because we have to keep it within the springtime. It says in the Torah, guard the spring month. This is the holiday of the spring, to which the question is asked, well, duh. I mean, we don't know when it happened. Why is it specifically mentioned as the springtime? Well, that's because we go by a predominantly lunar calendar. You know, if you notice, the Muslims are always celebrating Ramadan at different times of the year. Sometimes it's in the fall, sometimes it's in the summer. What's going on over there? Because the lunar calendar is actually 11 days shorter than the solar calendar. So you're constantly creeping back 11 days, 11 days, 11 days, which if you use a lunar calendar, then say like you're Muslim, so Ramadan's going to, and every holiday is going to constantly be creeping through the year back 11 days. I think also the Chinese use that also. So the Chinese New Year, I think, has a similar problem or issue, not a problem. But anyway, in order to keep that in the springtime, so to keep Passover in the springtime, that's the answer is why does it mention the spring? Because Passover has to be in the springtime. So how do you do that? So every few years we put in another month. So we go back 11 days and then 11 days and 11 days, and then boom, we add another month. So you do that in a 19-year cycle. I think you do that, let's see, 3, 6, 9, 12, 50. You do it I think about 6 times in order for that to work. So a little calendar history for you there. But anyway, back to spring cleaning. So that's with the Catholic Church. Obviously, the Catholic Church and the Orthodox rites, that's, this is a relatively new thing. We mentioned, when it came to Lent, as we did in our last episode, that was when it came to the church, I think that was really codified in sort of the beginning of the 4th century with the Nicene Council. So, some researchers actually believe that the origin of spring cleaning comes from the Iranian holiday of Navruz, which is the Persian New Year, and it falls on the first day of spring. And Iranians actually continue the practice. I'm going to totally butcher this. I apologize. I think it's called Kanetakuni or Kunetakuni or Hunetakuni. I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced, but what it means in English is shaking the house. So just before the Persian New Year, they do this. Everything in the house gets thoroughly cleaned, from the drapes to the furniture, everything. Now, the holiday of Navruz has been a part of Persian culture since ancient times. It's associated with Mithraism, and dates back, I think, to like maybe the 1st or the 2nd century BCE. But it's also connected to Zoroastrianism, which is much older. But even that enters recorded history when Judaism's already at its peak. So let's go back even further. 3,330 years ago, and 28 days, God gave Moses a command, recorded again in Exodus. That command was for every Jew to clean their houses of all leavened products, all chametz. This, of course, is not as easy as it sounds. Anyone with kids, or if you have a mouse in the house, they can tell you that food ends up in some very strange places, on bookshelves, in vents, in drawers, everywhere. So, in order to do this properly, we need to pull out the furniture, empty drawers, flip beds, clean clothes, sweep, mop, you name it. And all of this can take, a few weeks of preparation, depending on how big the house is and how much time per day you have to do this, and how thorough you want to be. The Arizal, who is a 16th century Kabbalist, he says that anyone who's very careful about not having any leaven during Passover will actually not come to sin inadvertently during the coming year. So we take it very seriously. Now, when does all of this take place? Well, as I mentioned, in the weeks leading up to Passover. And when is Passover? That's right, in the spring, by the spring equinox, like we were just talking about. So I figured maybe some onlookers saw all these Jews cleaning and said, hey, what a great idea. Joking. How the concept transferred from Jews cleaning for Passover and non-Jews getting involved in spring cleaning may never be known. But one thing that seems pretty clear is Jews did it first. As always, I'd like to end off with a quick Devar Torah, a short word on this week's Torah portion, but this time it's not going to be on the Torah portion. As I mentioned with the last episode of the Lent episode, that we have the Sfiras HaOmer, the counting of the Omer, where for 49 days we count, which happened between Passover and Shavuot when they received the Torah. And interestingly enough, I tried looking to see if there, for some reason, I just thought maybe there was a connection, I don't know why, between Sefirat HaOmer, which we just call Sphira, and the cosmetic brand Sephora. And I was actually quite surprised. There was no connection, but it did mention that it was named after Tzipora, which was the beautiful wife of Moses, and Sephora is the Greek spelling of Tzipora. So I thought that was quite interesting. So I guess with Sephora, Jews did it first. But the term Sephira for Sfirat HaOmer means counting. Sofer, Siper, it could mean a few things really. It has, depending on exactly how you vocalize it, it can mean several things. And the one that I want to focus on this time is actually the meaning of shining. It means to shine. And I don't remember if I mentioned in the episode or not, but the counting of the Sphira is correlated spiritually to the powers of the soul. I think I did mention this, and yeah, I know for sure I did. And how each one, but in case you missed it, how each power of the soul, you have kindness, you have severity, you have endurance, you have beauty, all these different characteristics of the soul. I strongly encourage you, go to Chabad.org and you can check out all the cool Kabbalistic things going on over there. I don't want to get too into it now. However, there are 7 powers of the soul, and each of those powers contains within it all 7. So you have kindness of kindness, severity of kindness, beauty of kindness, endurance of kindness, all these different things. And you have 7 powers. Each power has all 7 within it. So 7 times 7, 49. And each day of the Omer, each day of counting the Omer, we are spiritually rectifying that particular soul power. So we're constantly improving ourselves and trying to become better people. And this is where the shining comes in, is we want those spiritual attributes to shine. We want to shine as people. We want to have God's light shine in this world and shine through us and through our souls. So this is the time of year, a very introspective time of year when we're really trying to connect to God. We don't do things like listen to music or have parties, which interestingly enough is for a different reason. But it really, I think, is really in the spirit of what's going on. If you think about that, like I said, it kind of flowed right in, right? We're working on ourselves spiritually, so we're not going to have wild parties and listen to music. But we actually do that because it's a mourning period as well. There was a famous rabbi. His name is Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students. And he has a very interesting story in and of himself that I'm not going to get into now. I really suggest you look it up. It's fascinating. He learned Torah much later on in life and ended up becoming, one of the leaders of the generation. But his thousands of students all died in a plague, which was very tragic for the Jewish people. Now, 24,000 people isn't very much. Actually, it was -5 because 5 of his students survived. And that's not very much when you consider, say, something, since it's Yom HaShoah today, something like the Holocaust, where there's millions upon millions dying, or something like the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple, which, again, millions of people dying. But you're not just talking 24,000 random everyday Joe Schmoes. we're talking 24,000 of the cream of the crop, the future leaders of the generation. And so it was horrific for the Jewish people, and there was instituted a national mourning period for them during this time. And it ended on the 33rd day of the Omer, Lag BaOmer, which is celebrated with a lot of festivity. And I'll talk about Lag BaOmer when we get there. But it really, I think, completes that idea of really trying to focus and do introspection and connect to God. And what happened was, the reason they died was they didn't have enough Ahavat Yisrael, love of a fellow Jew. So what does that mean? These are Rabbi Akiva students. He is the leader of the generation. He's a massive Torah scholar, and he was actually known for loving other Jews so much. How could it be that his own students wouldn't have respect and love for another Jew? Doesn't make sense. So it's explained that what was the problem? The problem was not that they didn't love Jews, but each of them understood their Rebbe's teachings, their rabbi's teachings, Rabbi Akiva, in their own way, in their own light. They saw the Torah from their teachings and everything that he taught them in their own way. Everyone, like they say, you see five people see an accident, you have five different accounts of what happened. Everyone is viewing what's being taught in their own from their own perspective. And they loved each other to the point where they couldn't just allow someone to have the wrong idea of the Torah or of God. So they couldn't just let them be wrong, God forbid. So they had to impress upon them how they're wrong and how they should accept what, student A, it has to tell student B that he's wrong and he should accept what student A believes. And this is, of course, what was considered a grave sin, because they should have recognized that, look, I see things one way, he sees things another way, and there's room for both of our opinions. We're both interpreting the same thing, and so we should have enough respect for each other to appreciate our differences and see how we approach things in a different way. And it's important in life to see how everyone approaches life and God and religion. It's really a beautiful thing for all people to learn and to appreciate one another and learn from one another, and that's how we all grow. So l'chaim, l'chaim, and we'll all be shining, our souls will be shining, and God's light will be shining in the world with the coming of Mashiach. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you listening, whether you're listening on iTunes and maybe you're listening on YouTube, all maybe three of you, I don't even know how many, but I really hope that we keep in touch. Please feel free to continue the conversation with me on Facebook, Jews Did It First, or you can email me at rabbi@jewishoswego.org. I'm also on Twitter @OswegoRabbi. Until next week, Shabbat Shalom.